You ever walk into a room and feel every molecule of air freeze around you? That's what it felt like the moment I stepped into my father's office that Tuesday afternoon. The one with the floor-to-ceiling glass that looks over Manhattan like a king surveying his kingdom. And in that throne room stood two ghosts I hadn't seen in months. My ex-wife, Camille, and the man she left me for. Not just anyone. No, that would have been too merciful. She left me for Logan, the president's damn son. And there they were, perched like royalty on leather chairs they didn't earn, laughing like the world owed them something. Camille turned first. That smile, surgical, polished, the same one that used to melt me back when I was young and too stupid to see the wires behind the charm, curved across her face like a guillotine. Well, she said, that voice dipped in mockery. What brought you here, darling? Coming to beg for alms. Beg? She had no idea. Logan leaned forward then. A guy who'd never worked a day in his life except maybe holding up the bar at some VIP fundraiser. His teeth were too white. His handshake the kind that came with moisturizer and apology. He grinned at me, lifted his hand like he was flicking lint off a lapel. Sorry, man. We don't hire bankrupts. That was the punchline, I guess. Bankrupt. To them, I was the has-been. The cast-off. The guy whose life unraveled the second his wife traded up for a surname that made headlines. Only, they didn't know what I knew. They didn't know who I was. They'd forgotten what the Sterling name really meant. I turned my head just slightly, just enough to meet the eyes of the man at the window. My father, Charles Sterling, a titan, the kind of man whose name didn't just appear on Forbes lists, but in corporate war stories told behind closed doors. $6 billion in holdings, global leverage, and ice in his veins for anyone stupid enough to betray his blood. He turned, slow, deliberate, and then he spoke. His voice cracked through the silence like a gavel. I fired your father, he said, staring at Logan with eyes that didn't blink. Now get out. Both of you. Camille's smile died like a candle underwater. Logan's mouth opened, then shut, then opened again like a fish yanked out of its bowl. But me? I just stood there. Not a word. Because some victories don't need applause. They echo better in silence. Camille didn't move right away. Her eyes bounced between me and my father like she'd stepped into the wrong room on the wrong day, wearing the wrong smile. I knew that look. She wore it the day she lied to my face and said it was just business dinners with Logan. He's helping me network, she'd said. Sure. Right into his bed. Wait, she said now, rising slowly, like she still thought she had leverage. Charles, you can't be serious. You're really going to let him talk to us like that? My father raised an eyebrow. You mean my son? She faltered. Logan stood next to her now, posture stiff, jaw locked. It was the first time I'd ever seen him look like he didn't know how to spin the room. It was beautiful, I think, my father continued, walking around the desk with the kind of calm that only comes from knowing no one can touch you. You misunderstood who owns the room you're standing in. You see a corner office, a view, wealth. You think that means you're safe. He stepped closer. But you forget, safety isn't something I offer. It's something I control. Logan cleared his throat. Mr. Sterling, with all due respect, this isn't necessary. I came to discuss a potential partnership between Sterling Holdings and the State Development Fund. And you brought your mistress to a business meeting? My father asked, not even bothering to look at Camille. Cute. Camille flinched like she'd been slapped. I should have felt bad. I didn't. I remembered the text messages, the receipts, the 2-week spa retreat that turned out to be 4 nights in a private villa with Logan, compliments of taxpayers. She didn't even try to deny it when I found out. Just shrugged, said we'd grown apart, told me I was boring, passionless, disposable. You chose him, I said quietly, finally stepping forward. You chose to humiliate me, to lie, to pretend I was beneath you. Camille's voice cracked. You thought you'd upgraded, I said. I get it. Sterling looked like old money. Logan looked like new power. Flashy, loud, and empty. You were betting on his name. Then I stepped in front of her. No more rage. No sarcasm. Just one last cut. But the name on this building? I leaned in. That's mine. It's always been mine. My father motioned toward the door. Security will escort you out, he said. I'd do it myself, but I don't like getting dirt on my shoes. The guards were silent. Swift. Logan didn't resist. He was too stunned. But Camille? She turned at the last second. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in our twisted history, they weren't smug. They were scared. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I smiled, slow and real. Not even a little. They were gone. The silence after they left felt like standing in the middle of a battlefield, surrounded by smoke, heart still pounding from a fight you didn't throw a punch in, but won anyway. My father didn't say anything right away. Just walked back to his desk, sat down, and opened his tablet like he hadn't just gutted the president's son and my ex-wife in front of me with surgical precision. That was how he operated. A scalpel, not a hammer. And somehow, that was more terrifying. I stood there, waiting, processing. "What took you so long?" he asked, eyes never leaving the screen. "Excuse me." "To walk back in here," he said. "They burned you. Publicly. You disappeared like some embarrassed schoolboy. That's not the son I raised." I didn't want a handout. I replied, sharper than I meant. "I didn't come running to Daddy when the marriage crumbled." He looked up at me then. Really looked. "Good," he said after a beat. "Because I wouldn't have given you one." Of course not. Sterlings don't cry. Sterlings don't beg. Sterlings wait. Plot. Strike when the throat is bare. And that's exactly what I'd been doing. "You still writing code?" he asked. I nodded. "Better than ever." He smirked. "Good. You'll need it." That was all he said before returning to his tablet. I knew what he meant. My father didn't believe in reconciliation. He believed in leverage. In legacy. And if I was going to reclaim mine, I couldn't just sit in that office and bask in petty revenge. I had to outbuild what they tried to destroy. I left the office and took the elevator down to the garage, but the moment the doors slid shut, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was surgical, the kind that slices clean through the numbness and leaves you bleeding before you even feel it. That elevator ride was the longest 15 floors of my life. Camille, Logan, her smirk, his arrogance, and the way she looked at me when the tide turned. She never saw me. She saw a stepping stone, a man to hold her purse while she chased status. But what she didn't realize was that while she chased the spotlight, I was busy becoming the man who built the stage. The city blurred past the window as I pulled onto the highway. My phone buzzed, 3 missed calls from a number I knew too well. Camille's. I silenced it. No messages. No calls. No closure. She made her choice. And now, she'd live with it. My destination wasn't home. It wasn't anywhere public. It was a private tech lab in Brooklyn, mine. Hidden under a shell company no one, not even my father, knew I owned. What Camille never understood was that I didn't just walk away after the divorce. I buried myself in code, strategy, and quiet revenge. The kind that doesn't just cut back. It exposes. Bankrupt? I smiled to myself as the retinal scanner turned green. She thought I was broke. She thought I was irrelevant. She had no idea what I'd built, who I'd become. Let her sleep in silk sheets beside a man with borrowed power. I'd rather build my empire from ash than beg for a seat at someone else's table. The lab smelled like electricity and ambition. No windows. No branding. Just concrete walls, cold steel, and silence. Except for the hum of machines and servers processing code faster than most Fortune 500 companies could dream. This wasn't a startup. This was a weapon. And I'd built it quietly while Camille thought I was licking wounds. Funny thing about betrayal. It doesn't break you if you were forged in fire to begin with. It focuses you. I took the elevator down to sublevel 2. Only 2 people in the world had access. One of them was me. The other was Derek Kane, a former NSA analyst I'd met through a mutual contact the year before the divorce. Back then, I was trying to build a secure communication network for journalists in hostile territories. Derek helped me crack the architecture. But when he saw the underlying code, he said something I never forgot. "You realize what you've built, right? This isn't encryption. It's domination." He wasn't wrong. The algorithm didn't just secure messages. It learned. It mapped behavioral patterns. It could predict, intercept, and expose anyone operating within digital infrastructure, including powerful men with secrets. Like Logan. Like his father. Like anyone foolish enough to underestimate the bankrupt ex. I slid my keycard, and the vault door groaned open. Derek sat at the terminal, eyes bloodshot, coffee cold. "You're late," he said, not looking up. I was busy kicking out royalty. He smirked. "I saw. News broke 20 minutes ago." My brow lifted. "Already?" Derek turned his screen toward me. "Breaking. Logan Mercer escorted from Sterling Tower by security. Sources cite corporate misconduct." I chuckled. The rumor mill works faster than PR firms. Derek's expression shifted from amusement to business. I got what you asked for. He pulled up a file, Project Falcon. It was my silent partner. An AI that mapped influence networks, campaign donors, shell corporations, offshore accounts, media manipulation, all of it. I hadn't activated it in over a year. Not since Camille left, and I told myself I was done fighting. But I wasn't done. I was just waiting for the right time. Derek tapped the keyboard and brought up another screen. This one was a matrix of names, faces, bank transactions. At the center, Logan Mercer. And branching off from him, like roots of a toxic tree, were politicians, CEOs, fund managers, his entire world. And Camille. She was tied in through a fake consulting company that hadn't existed until 3 weeks after our divorce. My hands curled into fists. She got paid, I muttered. Derek nodded. $275,000. Lifestyle consulting. Fancy term for hush money. My jaw tightened. She didn't just leave me. She sold me out. She cashed in on her betrayal. While I was grieving the end of something real, she was already padding her next chapter with blood money. Good. It would make what came next all the more satisfying. Derek leaned back. So what now? I stared at the screen. At the empire they thought I couldn't touch. At the digital string that, if tugged just right, would unravel it all. Now, I said, we pull the first thread. We didn't start with Logan. That would have been too obvious. Too fast. And besides, people like him? They're just symptoms. You want to kill the disease, you go for the system feeding it. That's why our first move was simple. We went after the money. Start with the offshore accounts, I told Derek, my eyes fixed on the map of hidden digital vaults lighting up the screen like constellations of corruption. The ones buried under Mercer Trust. He nodded. We're talking 8 figures. Possibly 9 if you count the crypto laundering trails. I don't need all of it, I said. Just enough to make them flinch. And flinch they did. 3 days later, Mercer Trust came in branch flagged, anomalous activity. A $500 million investment deal fell through when a whistleblower, anonymously, of course, leaked documents suggesting illicit campaign donations tied to Logan's father's presidential office. It made the papers. Not front page. Yet. But deep enough that it lit a fire where it hurt. Meanwhile, Camille was busy playing the loyal wife in designer gowns at charity galas, completely unaware the floor was beginning to crack beneath her stiletto heels. She posted a photo that week, her and Logan at a gala, fake smiles, champagne flutes raised, captioned, "Sometimes you lose what was never meant to be. Sometimes you find your real future." I stared at it for 5 full seconds before sending it to Derek with 2 words. Let's ruin them. He didn't even ask. By then, we'd already found the wormhole, an unsecured Dropbox link Camille used to upload invoices for her consulting firm. Sloppy, but expected. Camille never was the brains in the operation. She just knew how to smile while someone else paid the bill. The folder contained receipts, memos, correspondence with a tech firm in Geneva. One document caught my eye. Service rendered, introduction of proprietary AI encryption concept to Lumitech Ventures. That was my algorithm. My F********* ING code. She had passed it off as part of her consulting portfolio. Sold it to Logan's friends in exchange for investment clout. No wonder she never once asked for access to the source files. She didn't need it. She just needed the idea, the framework I'd pitched her in confidence back when we were married. Back when I thought we still meant something. Now it was being peddled like cheap perfume. I sat back in my chair, breathing slow. My hand didn't tremble. My jaw didn't clench. I felt nothing. Because numbness is a beautiful thing when your enemies think you're asleep. That night I drafted a letter, anonymous, encrypted, untraceable, and sent it to a compliance officer at the SEC. A real one. The kind who'd been trying for years to find something on the Mercer family. I didn't give him everything. Just enough to whet his appetite. Enough to make him hungry. Then I picked up my phone, found Camille's number, and stared at it for a full minute. She didn't deserve a warning. But I gave her one anyway. Text message sent, 11:47 p.m. The past always has a way of catching up. Hope Logan taught you how to run. No reply. Not then. But I knew she read it. The little delivered icon turned to read 2 minutes later. And just like that, I'd pulled the thread. By the time she figured out the sweater was unraveling, it would be too late. Camille always loved Thursdays. Back when we were married, it was our escape night. A standing dinner, same rooftop restaurant, same wine, same sunset backdrop. She said it made her feel anchored, safe, Predictable. I wonder if she still felt anchored that night, sitting across from Logan in the same restaurant, sipping from the same glasses, beneath a different man's shadow. Because I made a reservation too. 2 tables behind them. Disguised in a black cap and a jacket she boxed up after the divorce, said it made me look too blue-collar. Funny how invisible you become once someone decides you're beneath them. From that table, I watched. Not to eavesdrop. I didn't need to. I already knew everything they were going to say. I'd planted a microphone in her clutch earlier that day. Not personally. I'm not a lunatic. But I knew her assistant's assistant. Knew she was underpaid. Knew she'd fold with a 5-figure wire transfer and a promise no one would ever know. And I was right. Why are the auditors asking questions? Logan's voice was sharp. Tense. Camille frowned. It's probably just routine. Your father's team will bury it. Not if it links back to you, he snapped. I told you not to use the consulting firm for that. You were supposed to play the role, not run AF *****ing side hustle. The cracks. Watching Logan try to control a situation with the same smug charm he used to flirt with my wife behind my back? That was poetic. Except now, charm wasn't cutting it. Camille's response came in that coiled, icy tone I remembered too well. Don't raise your voice to me in public, she hissed. And don't forget, I'm the one who brought you the code. I could see the fear behind her eyes now. Not for what they'd done, but for what was coming. Logan leaned in, whispering something I couldn't hear. But the expression on her face twisted into something halfway between panic and fury. I stood, dropped enough cash to cover my untouched whiskey, and walked out. By the time they finished dessert, an email would land in Camille's inbox. From a spoofed account. No name. No signature. Just a single PDF file. A screenshot of the SEC's internal task force memo. Subject: Mercer Trust / Lumitech Ventures, preliminary investigation approved. Immediate freeze pending review. I wasn't bluffing. And now they knew it. I drove to the edge of the city and parked overlooking the skyline, the very one Logan used to laugh at from his penthouse balcony. Said it was his kingdom. Kingdoms built on fraud don't last. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. What do you want? No name. But I knew the cadence. I knew her. Camille. I stared at the screen. Because in that moment, something strange flickered through me. It wasn't regret. It wasn't hesitation. It was clarity. I didn't want money. I didn't want an apology. I didn't want her back. I wanted the same thing every man who's ever been betrayed wants. To make them feel it. Not just the loss. The emptiness. I didn't respond. Let her stew. Let her spiral. Let her realize the fallout hadn't even started. Because the real storm wasn't legal. It was personal. And it was already on her doorstep. The call came at 6:03 a.m. I knew it would. Because panic doesn't keep business hours. Unknown number flashed across the screen, but I answered before the second ring. Silence. Breathing. Then, Is this him? Logan. His voice didn't have the usual polish. No silk. Just raw gravel. Sleep-deprived. Maybe drunk. Definitely unsteady. I leaned back in my chair, coffee in hand, sunrise cutting a line of gold across my floor. Calm. I'd been waiting for this. Define him, I said. You know who this is, he barked. You think this is funny? Torching my accounts, getting my father questioned by the feds. Torched? Oh, Logan. This was the pilot light. You torched yourself, I replied. I just handed you the matchbook you left behind. I could practically hear him pacing, probably shirtless, standing in the penthouse kitchen he didn't earn, staring down at a phone paid for by taxpayers. You think you're clever? He spat. This little hacker boy revenge fantasy ends with you behind bars. I laughed, slow and genuine. Logan, your father's campaign manager just dumped a 2-terabyte server into the hands of an SEC mole. I wouldn't worry about me. I'd worry about who rats you out first. Silence. Not the dramatic kind. The scared kind. I let it settle before hanging up. No threats. No gloating. Just the slow, suffocating realization that he wasn't the hunter anymore. He was the prey. By noon, Camille tried again. She showed up at my father's building, which I watched from a distance through the lens of a rooftop camera I'd had installed 3 weeks ago. She was in black, always polished. Mourning something she hadn't lost yet. The guards didn't let her up. She stood there for 5 minutes, trying to talk her way through with that fake concern in her eyes, probably rehearsing some monologue about misunderstandings and old connections. But my father had already given instructions. No meetings. No exceptions. No mercy. Camille eventually turned, pulled out her phone, and called someone. Derek zoomed in. Lip reader software caught a phrase. He's dangerous. He's going to ruin us. Oh, Camille, if I were dangerous, you'd already be buried. No, I was something worse. I was patient. That afternoon, I made a single phone call to a name buried in an old Rolodex. He answered on the second ring. Still sharp. Still bitter. Briggs, he said. Been a long time. Briggs used to run internal security at Mercer Industries, until Logan pushed him out in favor of younger blood. I tracked him to a second-tier risk firm in Jersey where he'd been collecting dust. I have an offer, I said. I want everything you know about the Mercers. Every lie. Every shell company. Every backdated document you were told to ignore. He didn't hesitate. What's the price? No price, I said. Just satisfaction. That got a laugh. The good kind. Briggs lived for revenge. Especially the kind dressed up as justice. By sunset, the first wave hit. Not from me. From them. Logan's legal team sent a cease and desist letter. Hand-delivered. Standard saber-rattling. Words like defamation, cyber harassment, and malicious intent. I read it once. Twice. Then lit it on fire with a kitchen match and watched it curl into ash in my sink. Because you know what the best part is? I hadn't even started lying. Everything they were choking on was the truth. And the truth? It's got a longer reach than any lawsuit. It always starts with a phone call. This one came from a blocked number. I answered on instinct. Camille. Her voice was quieter this time. No edge. No condescension. Just that breathy, saccharine tone she used when she was about to lie through her teeth. I didn't know, she whispered. Didn't know what? I asked, keeping my tone flat. That Logan was using me. That they were watching. That she stopped herself. That this would all get traced back to me. There it was. Not regret. Fear. The kind of fear that only blooms when the wolves start circling and you realize you're not in the penthouse anymore. You're back on the street, barefoot and bleeding, and no one's coming to save you. I made mistakes, she said. You made a profit, I corrected. There was a silence. Then, I still love you. I laughed. Not cruelly. Not loudly. Just enough to let her know it was over. You love money, Camille. Power. The illusion of safety. And now that illusion's cracking. I'm pregnant. That stopped me. She let the words hang like a noose between us. Except, I didn't flinch. Because I knew Camille. I knew her tells. The sharp breath before a lie. The way she held silence like a dagger. You're not, I said quietly. And even if you were, it's not mine. So whatever game you're playing, pick a new script. Her voice trembled then. Not with sadness. With rage. You think this is funny? You think this ends with you walking away clean? No, I said. It ends with you wishing you had. An hour later, Derek pinged me. Check your burner inbox. New footage. I opened it. A hotel hallway. Camille. Wearing a red dress. And Logan. Screaming. Slurring. Grabbing her by the wrist. The video ended before it escalated, but the timestamp, location, and facial match were enough. We had leverage. No. She had just handed us the first real mistake. I sent the clip to Briggs. No commentary. No threat. He knew what to do. 3 hours later, Logan's father received an anonymous package at the Presidential Foundation office. Flash drive. No note. But the message was clear. Your son's not just corrupt. He's dangerous. By midnight, Camille's publicist put out a vague statement. Mrs. Mercer is taking a brief hiatus from public life to focus on her health and family. Translation? They're circling the wagons. But it's already too late. I'm not behind them anymore. I'm inside. And the wolves? They're already in the house. Camille vanished from the public eye faster than a senator after a scandal. No more galas. No social posts. Not even a staged family outing with Logan to play the part of the grieving, misunderstood power couple. They went dark. Which meant one thing. They were scared. They weren't regrouping. They were hiding. The Mercer PR machine had kicked into overdrive, issuing soft denial statements to the press. Unfounded allegations. Deepfakes. Right-wing smears. And Logan? He went underground too. No more public appearances, no more speeches, no more staged business deals where he pretended to be a real boy in his daddy's kingdom. But I knew where he was. The penthouse. Always the penthouse. Because men like Logan don't retreat to bunkers. They retreat to shrines built in their own image. That's why I had a drone hovering outside his building. And no, not a military drone. A civilian-grade thermal lens rig, parked on a neighboring rooftop, controlled by a former recon engineer who owed me a favor. We weren't watching if Logan cracked. We were watching how. Then came the call. Not from Camille. Not from Derek. Not from Briggs. It came from someone who wasn't supposed to know anything. Mr. Sterling? A woman's voice asked, brittle and precise. Yes. This is Regina Marlowe. I was Camille's therapist. I said nothing. Let her fill the silence. I think you need to know. Camille's not where they say she is. And Logan's family is covering it up. She's not at home. She's not even in the country. My blood ran cold, not for Camille's safety, for what it meant. If they moved her, I said, they think she's a liability. Regina exhaled shakily. She left me a note. Not for the police. Not for Logan. For you. A beat. Why? She said. The woman hesitated, like she knew this wasn't just a messy affair anymore. She said you'd know what to do with the truth. I met Regina in a quiet cafe in Midtown. She handed me a sealed envelope. No phone call. No email. Camille had gone old school. That alone told me how afraid she really was. Inside the envelope, a flash drive, and a handwritten note. You win. But it's not over. There are things Logan kept from me. From all of us. If anything happens to me, this is your proof. Burn them with it. See. She had taped it to the underside of a journal page detailing meetings, private meetings, between Logan and foreign contractors, shell companies, private security, shady wire transfers, things that had nothing to do with our marriage, and everything to do with something darker. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was blackmail, misappropriation of government funds, potential treason. I wasn't looking at a man who stole my wife anymore. I was looking at a man capable of something far worse. And Camille? She wasn't hiding because she was guilty. She was hiding because she finally realized what kind of monster she married. That night, I made a choice. I wasn't going to destroy Logan just to settle the score. I was going to bury him because no one else would. Not the press. Not the Mercers. Not even the damn government. But me? I wasn't playing chess anymore. I was setting the board on fire. The flash drive wasn't password protected, which told me Camille wasn't trying to play smart anymore. She was scared. I plugged it into a clean, offline system in the Brooklyn lab. Derek stood over my shoulder, arms crossed, jaw tight. We both knew whatever was on that drive wasn't just about us anymore. It was about the kind of rot you only find when the money gets too quiet. The drive auto-loaded. A folder, Scepter_logs. Inside, a collection of time-stamped screen recordings, audio files, PDFs. Every file carefully cataloged by name, date, and location. Derek opened the first one. We watched in silence as Logan appeared on screen, seated in some low-lit room. Probably a private office, definitely not in the U.S., leaning forward, whispering to a man whose face never showed, but whose voice had a thick Slavic accent. Logan's voice, calm, practiced, like someone rehearsing lines from a script. As long as the routing's clean and the campaign never touches the funds, no one can trace it. That's your guarantee. And in exchange, we'll make sure the tech passes inspection. Derek paused it. Is that what I think it is? He asked. I nodded once. Foreign money. Government contracts. Bribery. This wasn't just bad optics. This was federal prison stuff. We kept going. More footage. More names. Phone calls logged between Logan and a lobbying firm blacklisted 3 years ago for laundering donations through fake educational foundations. At least 2 calls with his father's campaign treasurer. Emails forwarded from Camille's consulting account, used as a dead drop for documents that should have been classified. She'd been the unwitting mule. He used her to move files. She thought she was climbing the ladder. He was just using her to carry the bricks he didn't want traced back to his own hands. And now? Now those bricks were falling. I leaned back, let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in my chest since the day she left. Send this to Briggs, I said. All of it. Everything. Derek nodded. No questions. 10 minutes later, it was en route, triple encrypted and hand-delivered to a federal contact Briggs had cultivated back when he still wore a badge. That evening, I got the call. Blocked number. Again. But this time it wasn't Logan. It was his father's chief of staff. Mr. Sterling. The voice said, clipped and calm. We need to talk. Privately. I stayed quiet. You have information, he continued. And you're not wrong about its value. But the president doesn't like public blood. I smirked. Tell him not to bleed. A pause. We're prepared to make this right. There it was. The fear, dressed up as diplomacy. I'm not looking for a deal, I said. I'm not looking for a bride. I'm not even looking for justice. Another pause. Then what are you looking for? I looked out the window of the lab, across the skyline, toward the glass tower where Logan once laughed, where Camille once smiled, where I once believed in people who turned out to be poison. I'm looking for silence, I said. From them. For good. Another pause. Then, understood. They thought I was negotiating. They were wrong. Because I didn't record those calls to threaten them. I recorded them to bury them. Permanently. Not with noise. With truth. And truth? It doesn't need a press release. It just needs a crack. And now the dam was breaking. 3 days after the leak, Camille resurfaced. Not in a headline. Not in a gala dress. Not wrapped around Logan's arm like a couture accessory. She showed up at my father's building again, only this time, she didn't make it past the front security desk. Not because of a blacklist. Because I was already waiting there. She stepped through the revolving doors with oversized sunglasses, hair tied up in a bun that looked slapped together by panic, not style. Gone were the heels. She wore flats. Practical ones. The kind worn by women who weren't hiding from the paparazzi. They were hiding from someone worse. I motioned to the private elevator. She didn't speak, just followed. The ride to the 37th floor was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. But her eyes flicked sideways now and then, like she expected me to start yelling. Or laughing. Or maybe both. But I didn't. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. My father's office was empty. He was in Geneva, handling some acquisition deal I no longer cared about. But the room still held power. Legacy. And Camille felt it. You could tell by the way she hovered near the doorway, like she didn't quite deserve to step in again. Sit down, I said. She did. Then finally, she spoke. Logan's spiraling, she said quietly. The Russians have him by the throat. His father's trying to distance the campaign, but Logan's too arrogant to back down. He keeps saying he'll handle it. But he can't. You sound surprised, I replied. She flinched, then looked down. I didn't know how deep it went. I just stared at her. I swear to you, she added, a little too fast. No, I said. Don't swear. Don't beg. Just explain. She took a breath. And then it came out. The fake foundation Logan used to move funds. The burner phones Camille helped register under her firm's name. The diplomatic pouches full of research material that weren't searched at airport customs. The threat Logan whispered in her ear the night before she disappeared. If I go down, you're going with me. You always were my favorite piece on the board. That was when she knew. She wasn't a wife. She was a witness. She wasn't protected. She was expendable. Why come to me? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Because you're the only one who doesn't want to control me, she said. You just want me out of your life. I tilted my head. Almost right. She blinked. I don't just want you out, I said. I want your story. She paled. You mean testimony? No. Just the truth. Written. Documented. Signed. And when this explodes, and it will, that truth better line up with what you just told me. She nodded slowly. And if it does, then I'll make sure Logan never finds you. That night, Derek and I watched the security footage together. Camille leaving the tower, getting into an unmarked car, disappearing into the blur of the city. Do you believe her? Derek asked. No, I said. Then why protect her? I stared at the screen for a long moment, then said, because the woman who betrayed me isn't the same woman running for her life. That woman I can use. Meanwhile, Logan was spiraling. He'd fired his media team. Started posting unhinged messages on burner accounts tied to obscure forums. We tracked 2 of them. One claimed the investigation was a globalist smear campaign. The other said Camille had been working for me the whole time. I smiled. He was cracking. And a man with no allies and too much ego? That's a man who makes dangerous mistakes. Which meant the final move was close. Not a strike. A surgical collapse. And once the rubble settled, they wouldn't even remember the name Mercer. Only the man who dismantled them, brick by brick, lie by lie. Some betrayals cut deeper than others. Not because of blood, because of trust. You don't flinch when a snake bites. That's just nature. But when the man hired to protect you slips the knife into your back, that's a different kind of wound. That's what happened to Logan. And I made sure it happened exactly when it would hurt the most. It started with a quiet ping from Derek. Asset B cracked. Meet confirmed. Asset B was Randall King, Logan's head of private security. Former Navy. Tactical. Trained to take a bullet. No? He was taking a deal. I met him in the back room of an old boxing gym in Brooklyn. Concrete floors, rusted lockers, the kind of place where the smell of sweat never left the walls. Fitting, really. This war had always been bare-knuckle. He sat on a bench, hands folded, face unreadable. "You're not who I expected," he said. I shrugged. "Neither are you. Guess we're both full of surprises." He didn't smile. He pulled out a flash drive. Set it on the bench between us. "That's audio. 2 months' worth." "He talks too much when he drinks." I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of things?" "Money. Votes. Threats." One file's just him bragging about how easy it was to plant spyware on a senator's daughter's laptop. I let that hang. Because that was nuclear. Randall looked down at his hands. "I protected that man for 6 years. Took a bat to the ribs for him once outside a nightclub in Prague. Thought he was reckless, not evil." "What changed?" I asked. He paused. "His father offered me a bonus to disappear if things go south. Not hush money. Severance. Like I was already dead." I nodded. "Welcome to the club." He slid the flash drive into my hand. Then looked me in the eye. "You're going to end him, aren't you?" "Not just him," I said. "The machine." I gave the drive to Derek. He scrubbed, decrypted, verified every bit of audio. Then we made 5 copies. One for an investigative journalist who'd been fired for chasing Mercer funding ties to private prison systems. One for an IRS agent whose brother disappeared after auditing a Mercer-controlled super PAC. One for Camille. One for Briggs. And one for me. Because when the storm hit, I wanted to stand at the center and watch. That night, Logan made his move. A desperate one. He posted a live stream from his penthouse balcony. Looked like a hostage video, if the hostage was himself and the kidnapper was guilt. "America," he slurred. "You've been lied to. I've been lied to. This is bigger than me. Bigger than my family. There are forces at play, deep, dark forces." I didn't even finish watching. Because panic isn't interesting. Collapses. The following morning, the first headline hit. Mercer family tied to international bribery network. Leaked recordings spark congressional inquiry. The second came 12 minutes later. Senate launches emergency ethics panel. President denies knowledge of Sun's deals. The third? Well, that one hit home. Anonymous source confirms. Camille Mercer cooperating with federal investigators. Logan's world wasn't just falling. It was imploding. And all I'd done was hand out matches. As I stood on my balcony, watching the news ticker roll, my phone buzzed. "Camille." One text. "He's gone." "What now?" I stared at it for a long time, then typed back. "Now you disappear. For good. And you." I rebuild. I thought he might run. Logan always struck me as the kind of man who'd vanish behind a diplomatic wall the moment the heat got real. Take some fake ambassadorship to a no-name country and ride out the firestorm until someone else took the fall. But Logan? He surprised me. He tried to fight back. And that was his final mistake. It started with a leak. Not mine. His. A half-baked dossier dumped onto a fringe blog site at 3:17 a.m., files supposedly tying me to black hat shell companies and deep web market deals. The word cyber-terrorist was tossed around so casually you'd think it came free with coffee. I woke up to Derek's voice. "You see this crap?" I opened the file. Laughed. "They're panicking." "Should we respond?" he asked. "No. Let it breathe. It'll hang them better." Sure enough, by noon the story had collapsed under its own weight. Half the documents were traced to an old Bitcoin scam from 2016. The rest were clumsily forged, with metadata still bearing Logan's own law firm's template. "You can't make this stuff up." He tried to play my game, but he brought a toy knife to a sniper's war. Later that day, Camille called. "Did you see it?" she asked, voice low, wary. "I saw it," I said. "He's bleeding out. He just hasn't realized he's already dead." She was quiet for a beat. "I think he knows. That's what scares me." And that's when the ghost knocked on my door. Not literally, but through a name I hadn't heard in years. Melanie Croft. My first investor. Back before Camille. Before the marriage. Back when all I had was a prototype, a laptop, and 20 grand of student debt. Melanie was brilliant. Brutal. The kind of woman who could smell a billion-dollar idea before it had legs and crush it if she sensed weakness. She called me that evening. "I've been watching," she said. "No hello. No small talk." "I assumed you were," I replied. "I want in." I blinked. "In. You're burning a legacy to the ground," she said. "That's not petty. That's visionary." So the question is, what are you building in its place? There it was. The shift. The moment revenge becomes evolution. She didn't want to save me. She wanted to invest in the man who had proven he could dismantle giants. I'll show you the plans, I said. But this time, I don't sell equity. She laughed. You've changed. No, I said. I just finally believe I'm worth something. That night, I stood on the same balcony where Camille once told me she was unfulfilled, where Logan later kissed her like he owned something, where I watched it all go up in flames. Below, the city kept moving. Fast. Loud. Indifferent. But not me. I wasn't part of their game anymore. Because I wasn't chasing justice now. I was designing legacy. And the ashes? They weren't the end. They were blueprints. The number wasn't saved in my phone. But I knew it before I answered. Some people leave fingerprints on your life that don't wash off, even after they've burned the bridge they walked in on. It was Logan. His voice wasn't calm. Wasn't angry. It was empty. You win, he said. I didn't respond. What do you want me to say? He continued. That I'm sorry? That I messed up? That I took something that wasn't mine? Still, I said nothing. Because when a man like Logan calls you after the fire, he's not looking for forgiveness. He's looking for someone to tell him who to blame. You ruined everything, he said, quieter now. You could have just walked away. But you wanted a war. I finally spoke. No, Logan. You started the war. I just made sure you lost. Silence. Then, you think you've won. But you don't understand how deep this goes. What my father will do, what he's capable of. I cut him off. Your father made a choice. So did you. And now you both live with it. You think the public will remember you. He spat. They'll forget. The news cycle moves on. You'll just be another man who torched his own house out of spite. No, I said. I didn't torch the house. I just removed the snakes before they laid eggs in the foundation. Click. He hung up. And I didn't feel triumph. I felt finality. The kind you only get when the monster finally stops talking. Across town, Camille met with the federal agents for the third time. This time, she brought everything. Paper trails. Voice memos. Private logs from encrypted apps. Even a written statement implicating Logan's campaign liaisons in coercion and misappropriation. When the lead agent asked her why now, why not months ago, her answer was simple. Because I thought I was saving myself. I didn't realize I was saving my soul. For the first time, I believed her. Not because she was innocent, but because she had nothing left to lie for. Meanwhile, Melanie and I met in a penthouse conference room. One that used to belong to a Mercer-funded think tank. Now, it was mine. She laid a term sheet on the table. I slid it back. No stock. No board seat. You want in? You fund it. But it's mine. She smirked. You've changed. No, I said. I've just been through hell and figured out how to build fireproof walls. We called the new company Ashmark. A nod to where it began. A promise for where it's going. Secure infrastructure. Zero-knowledge proof systems. Legacy encryption that couldn't be hijacked by campaign money or policy loopholes. Built with transparency. Designed for people who had everything taken from them and still chose to rebuild. The launch was quiet. No press release. No media splash. Just a code commit timestamped on a public ledger. And the name Ashmark stamped at the bottom. No Logan. No Camille. No ghosts. Just me. And the code I never stopped writing. It happened on a Tuesday. That's the part that stuck with me. Not a dramatic Friday news drop. Not a Sunday expose. A Tuesday. The day America watches without bracing. The day the Mercers finally fell. The headline hit at 9:43 a.m. President's son formally indicted on 7 federal counts: conspiracy, wire fraud, foreign bribery. By 10 a.m., the president had canceled all public appearances. By 10:30, Camille's name was trending, not because of the affair, but because she'd handed over a handwritten deposition that matched 2 audio recordings now admitted into evidence. The woman who once left me for a crown was now the woman whose signature dismantled the throne. Funny, isn't it? People always say betrayal is the loudest part. But it's not. Justice is louder. It rattles marble halls. It interrupts legacy speeches. It clears the smoke and shows the wiring underneath the empire, corroded and sparking. Briggs texted me a photo at 11:02 a.m. A courtroom sketch of Logan, hunched in a gray suit, wrists cuffed, head down. One snake down, Briggs wrote. How's your new empire? I typed back. Cobra-proofed. Camille sent me one last message. Encrypted. Silent. No emoji. No punctuation. Leaving the country. New name. No goodbyes. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I missed her, but because I pitied the version of me who once would have replied. I archived the message. Didn't delete it, but didn't answer either. Some ghosts don't need to be exorcised. They just need to be forgotten. That afternoon, I visited the original Ashmark site. A barebones warehouse in the Brooklyn waterfront district. Steel beams, concrete floor, no polish. But inside, the hum of something new. We had a prototype for decentralized ID verification. Nothing flashy, but real, unshakable, transparent. Designed to prevent the very corruption that once wrapped around my throat and whispered sweet lies about loyalty and love. I ran my hand across the server rack and thought about the old me. The one who thought marriage was the destination. The one who thought trust came with rings. That version died quietly in a courtroom months ago. And from those ashes, Ashmark was born. At 7:15 p.m., I stood on the rooftop above the warehouse. Same city, different air. Below me, a world chasing headlines. Above me, just sky. And beside me, no one. And for the first time in years, that felt like freedom. I wasn't expecting anyone. I never do now. That's the privilege of burning bridges so thoroughly that even smoke doesn't bother you anymore. So when the knock came, 4 sharp taps on the steel security door of the Ashmark warehouse, I didn't flinch. I just reached under the table and tapped the silent alarm Derek had rigged. The kind that sent a drone overhead in 30 seconds and unlocked a 360-degree camera feed. The screen lit up. Her. Not Camille. Worse. Sophia. My sister. The only person who'd ever seen me cry and didn't treat it like weakness. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. Not since she took Camille's side during the divorce, said I was withholding, cold, too focused on building instead of loving. She'd bought the lies. Now she stood on the other side of bulletproof glass, holding a canvas tote and wearing the kind of look that said, I don't know if I'm too late or too early. I opened the door. We stared at each other. I had to come, she said. I saw the news. All of it. I asked. Enough. That word, enough, hit harder than I expected. We walked the empty warehouse, past server racks humming like a mechanical heartbeat, past prototypes half-assembled on modular tables, past a future being written in solder and sweat. This is you, she said softly. I didn't know. You didn't ask. She didn't argue, didn't apologize either, but she reached into her tote and handed me a folder. Paper. Old school. Inside, bank statements, court documents, and a copy of a real estate transfer deed. Camille forged your signature, she said, on a secondary property. Sold it. Hid the money under a cousin's name. I blinked. You're late, I said. I already found the money. She nodded. I just needed you to know that I know. That's when I understood. She wasn't there for justice. She was there for me. The version of me I buried when my marriage turned into a headline. The brother who disappeared behind glass walls and stayed there. We sat on the concrete steps outside the loading dock, watching dusk stretch across Brooklyn. Do you hate me? She asked. No, I said. But I stopped waiting for you. Silence. Then, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I looked over. You don't have to say that now. I know, she said. That's why I meant it. She left after an hour. No tears. No hug. Just a glance that said, if you need me, I'll answer this time. And then I was alone again. But it felt different now. Not bitter. Not empty. Just solid. Like the silence wasn't punishment anymore. It was protection. That night, I got one last message. A burner address. Simple. One line. You were never invisible. We were just blind. No name. No signature. But I knew it came from someone watching from the sidelines. Maybe one of the investors who passed on me before. Maybe someone I'd exposed in the fallout. Didn't matter. Because now I was building in daylight. No masks. No debt. No lies. And the only ghosts I had left? They stayed behind locked doors.